Hello and welcome to another live lesson in which I am going to teach you some advanced vocabulary for 2023. And you can see down there I said useful slang words and phrases. So I want to take a quick moment to tell you, why I chose these words. So there were really three things that I was trying to keep in mind. I was trying to think of some words that are probably new for you so that you'll learn some new words today. I also wanted to keep in mind words that I think are relevant for the upcoming year, words that you're likely going to hear if you're listening to, a YouTube video or a podcast, or you may even read about some of these words in online articles. And the last thing the reason why I chose these words is I also wanted to present words that I think are a little more informal, conversational, which is why I say some of them may even be considered slang. And I will talk about that a little bit as we go through this because I'm from the United States. And if I present a word that's slang, just be aware it's probably not used across all English varieties. And also, I think more likely younger generations may tend to use those words. So just those are the three reasons why I chose them. And as we go through this, of course, I want you to participate in the lesson. I am going to be giving you this in the form of a mini quiz. That way you can write your answers in the chat. If you know what word I'm talking about, or even if you're watching this later, just write the words in the comments. I just love hearing from you and just want to make these lessons more interactive. So here's the first one. And this word is a form of psychological abuse in which you trick or control someone by making them believe things that are not true, especially by suggesting that they may be mentally ill. So this is not a good word. It's not a word that people are using it in a positive way, but I do think this is a word that is more commonly becoming more commonly used. And I'll talk about the context in just a moment. I do want to say a quick hello to Vicky, Gustav, Svetlana. Great to have you here. Lolly, Rafaela, Angela, Takayo. Welcome. So the word that I'm talking about right now, I see somebody gave the correct answer. It's a form of psychological abuse. You're kind of trying to control someone's emotions by suggesting that they may be mentally ill. And yes, I see some correct answers. The word that we're looking for is gaslighting. Now, I will say that this is a verb, to gaslight. However, I'm giving you that ing word. So I'm using it either in the continuous tense or as a gerund. And I'll read these down here. So I've, as you can see, a great way, if you want to ever see how a word is used in context, just do a Google search, put the words in quotes, and then I would click on news. And then you see all these news articles either using the word in the headlines or just using it in the article in general. And just reading that information gives you a better sense of how the word is used. So gaslighting, here are the headlines that they're using this word. The first one says 18 signs of gaslighting and examples of how it plays out in abusive relationships. The next one, 10 signs of gaslighting. And then that final one says stop gaslighting your kids. So this is a word that I think everybody can relate to in one way or another, even though it's not a positive word, whether you're talking to somebody who you're in a relationship with or a family member or a friend, and we want to maybe control them in some way, whatever, control something that they're doing or the way that they think. And here are some examples. Right here, just some phrases that somebody might throw out if they're having a heated discussion or even an argument that could be examples of gaslighting. If somebody says, oh, you're way too emotional, or that next example, like, oh, you're crazy and just imagining things. Again, just suggesting that the other person is mentally ill in some way. Or that last one, you're being too dramatic because I was just joking. So these are sentences that could be examples of gaslighting someone. The other context in which I think you may hear this word probably more often this year in 2023 is you start to hear it more socially and politically, people trying to control and manipulate others. For example, you could say that in the United States, when it comes to guns, there are people who are always gaslighting and trying to control the way people think when it comes to that social issue, or even education, the things that are being taught in the classroom. And people might say something that's really provocative, and it could be, oh, they're gaslighting. So again, this is a word that, just listen for this upcoming year. It's not a good word, but one that I think you will hear. So the next thing that I want to say, if I want to give you another example, and I just want to make a quick announcement, if I were to say, if you're looking to practice and improve your speaking, you're crazy if you don't sign up for my speaking course. And that's just a little segue of me gaslighting, just to let you know that, yes, if you would like to practice and improve your speaking, you can check out my speaking course. And up there, not on this side, up there, you can use the code SPEAK20 to get $20 off. So this is the course page. I'll put a link right there in the chat if you want to check that out, find out more information about the course, such as the price, the class times. There's a lot of information. So yeah, if you would like to practice and improve your English with me, then yeah, check that out. The next one, we're going to just move right in to the next question. And this is a word that I think you'll hear this next year, as well as subsequent years, possibly for quite some time. This is a word related to technology, and we're talking about the internet considered as an imaginary area without limits where people can meet other people in virtual reality. All right, what would you call that imaginary space? And there are actually, quite a few different definitions for this word, and I was trying to come up with one and research one that I think was a little more accurate. So this is actually a word that there's a very well-known company, Lolly, because you mentioned it, that has now changed their name basically to this word because this is what they are hoping to achieve someday. Excellent, Rafaela, Eleonora, Manuel, Rose, Mina. So to answer your question, because the first comment I saw was about Facebook, and Facebook recently changed their name to Meta, which is short for the Metaverse. So I like when I do a Google search, this is probably the simplest explanation for the Metaverse. If this is the first time you're hearing this word, is a fictional universe. And there are video games, games that have to do with the metaverse. I've never played any of these games, but again, just to associate it with something like Roblox and Fortnite. There are also books that have to do with the metaverse. So those are some other examples down there. But as I mentioned before, this is a word you're going to hear this year and in the future as well. There was a lot of coverage talking about the metaverse in 2022, and it's something that I think people are going to continue talking about because it's really kind of toward the beginning stages of developing this virtual reality, but it's a good word to know, a good technology word to know, metaverse. Then the next word, and I think this one's a little more difficult. It's talking about an influencer who gives advice on financial investments. And this is something you would find these people on YouTube. They start these finance channels talking about stocks, real estate, and they're giving financial advice. What would you call these people? And this is actually, the word is a portmanteau. I'll give you that hint, and I'll also tell you in just a moment what a portmanteau is. So what would you what would you say is this word? All right, so now I see some like as financial analyst. So this is a new word, and like I said, I think it's probably more slang, and that's how I've labeled it. But we're talking about a Finfluencer. So it's a portmanteau. A portmanteau is just when you're talking about the blending of things. In this case, we're blending two words, finance and influencer, and we get Finfluencer. And I pointed it out down in the bottom. Probably this is a word that younger people are more likely to use, because I think some of these people are more likely to be following and watching these YouTube videos, these influencers talking about trading and stocks. But the word that you could use for them, which is a little more slang, Finfluencer. All right, Finfluencer. So maybe this is a new one. It has not made it into the dictionaries just yet, which is why, once again, I'm classifying it as slang. Then, this is a good word, and I think many of you have probably heard of this word. It's talking about a holiday that you take at home or near your home rather than traveling to another place. So you have vacation, you have holiday, but you're not going to get on a plane or get on a train and travel to some other place. You're going to stay at home, or you're going to stay near home. What would you call this? There is a word. It is also a portmanteau. All right, we're going to follow up on that because we just talked about a Finfluencer. So what other portmanteau would describe this meaning right here? Great job. Yes, Julia, Angela, Zanat. We're talking about a staycation. So once again, we're blending the words stay and vacation to refer to a situation in which, you're not going to be working, but you're also not going to travel to some other place. You're going to stay home. And you could tell somebody, yeah, I'm just going to take a staycation and just relax a little bit and unwind, and then I'm going to go back to work. So it's a staycation. So again, this is a fun word that has been around for, I think, several years now, and it's becoming a little bit more and more popular. All right, so if you're just joining us again, I'm kind of quizzing you on some new and advanced words for 2023, and they're more informal, and some of them are definitely slang. But I don't think not this one. This is a phrase, okay? I'll tell you it's a phrase referring to a person who does temporary or freelance work, especially as an independent contractor engaged on an informal and on-demand basis. So you're not hiring this person as an employee. You just need some work done from time to time. What would you call this? There are a couple of different words that you could use. I'm going to give you one, and I want to kind of follow up on that. So what do you think? Any guesses as to the phrase that I'm talking about? Now, you could say, again, to freelance is a verb. The noun is somebody who is a freelancer. And I think people that are describing themselves in this way, they would probably use the word freelancer. That's not the word that I'm about to give you. All right, so can you think of another word that has the same meaning as a freelancer? Contractor is a little similar. Okay, let me show you the answer. And again, I want to follow up. So we're talking about a gig worker. And you could say gig worker. I just mentioned, I think freelancer is probably more common. The reason why I chose this is because I wanted to talk a little bit about the word gig. Another collocation that you may find with this word is this one right here. People talking about the gig economy. That is a collocation referring to all of these people that are not necessarily employed by companies as actual employees, but really just a bunch of freelancers. Here are some companies that would be a part of the gig economy. If this is a new collocation for you, like Uber, anybody can, you have a car, you could sign up and try to start working and giving rides for Uber. Or if you have a place, you could start using Airbnb. All right, though that would be also a part of the gig economy. Or Fiverr is a site where you can find different gig workers or freelancers to help you out with different projects. So gig worker, gig economy, those are a couple of phrases that I think you're more likely to hear in the future, because I think there are more people that are just starting to work for themselves. And instead of finding a job at a company, they may work on different projects, and they're part of the gig economy. A long time ago, I would say before the internet, if I would hear the word gig as a noun, I would think of somebody like playing music, somebody in a band, and they would say, yeah, this weekend I have a gig downtown, and they're going to work and play music. But nowadays, the internet has really democratized jobs. In this case, we have the gig economy full of gig workers. The next one that I have for you. So it's another portmanteau. Okay, I'll go ahead and give you that hint. The meaning of this word is to explain something to someone in a way that suggests that they are stupid. Used especially when a man explains something to a woman that she already understands. What is this word? And this is I tried to give you this visual right here to reference what's going on. All right, I mentioned it's another portmanteau. What is the word that has this meaning? This is a word that has become a lot more popular in the last few years. So excellent. Can't read the name, sorry. And then Peter, yes. So the word that I'm talking about, and this is a verb, and if this is new for you, again, this is good for building your vocabulary, your comprehension. I would never say that, okay, you're learning these words, that you have to go out and use them. But again, these are words that I think are relevant to the upcoming year. And this is one that, like I said, it's become a lot more popular, to mansplain. So the reason why I think this is become more popular and out there is just part of, the women's rights, the movement, equality. And it's now referencing something that I think has happened for a long time, but we're now able to label it, kind of to call it out. Okay, this is what's going on. Some guy is talking about something, whether it's work related or something else, some other topic. The woman already knows about it, but the guy's, oh, let me explain. Let me tell you how this is done. And you could say they're mansplaining. So I added that, like she's trying to say, look, there's no need to mansplain. This is something that even jokingly my wife would say to me, like if I want to tell her about something that she already knows a bit about it. And she could say, look, just, stop mansplaining. You don't need to mansplain it to me. And this is what's going on. You're explaining something that she already knows. I have had people in the past ask me if it could go the other way, like to womansplain. As far as I know, I have not heard a verb used like that, but this is one that you can keep an eye out for. Then we have, let's see, this next one. This one is a word that is more relevant to social media, and one that I think was used or talked about quite a bit in 2022. And I can imagine that it's also going to be used quite a bit this next year and in the years to follow, because I don't think social media is going away anytime soon. So we're talking about to refuse someone an opportunity to make their ideas or beliefs known publicly because you think those beliefs are dangerous or unacceptable. What would happen to this person? So for example, if we're talking about a platform like YouTube, if I say something that is incredibly controversial, I might worry about YouTube refusing me the opportunity to keep sharing my ideas, my thoughts and opinions. So they would do this to me. What word can you think about it? It's related to cancel culture, but it's not the precise word that I'm thinking about. And I do. Wow. Thank you, Vicky, Gustav, Svetlana. I really appreciate the super chat. Send in love in 2023. So I haven't seen the word. And again, I think when I show you this word, I think many of you are going to, oh yes, I've heard this before. So the word that I'm talking about is to deplatform someone. So you're using it as a verb. When thinking about social media, it's like everybody is given a platform and you have to be responsible. I have this platform on YouTube right now, this channel in which I am using to teach English. But if somebody is very controversial or they're saying things that people think are dangerous, then the company may deplatform that person. So YouTube could ban someone, or Twitter could ban someone, or any social media company could ban someone, and they are deplatforming that person. So a lot of you were kind of talking about other words related to this when mentioning ban or cancel culture, censorship. It's all part of the same conversation. To kind of put a finer point on it, I've given you some people here that this last year, you could say, whether you like them or not, they were deplatformed because of their ideas, because of the stuff that they were saying. If you're unfamiliar with them, you have Andrew Tate right there, who was recently arrested. Kanye West, I'm sure you've heard about why he's been in the media a lot lately. And of course, the guy at the bottom, I don't think needs any introduction, Donald Trump. But yes, that was something after the January 6th insurrection, or I think actually after the election, and he was talking about all this fraud and stuff. He was deplatformed. He was taken off of Twitter. So again, when it comes to social media, this is a word that you might hear people talking about if somebody is removed, or maybe you want to say, oh, they should deplatform this person because their ideas are dangerous. Then I have some more for you. Hopefully some of these are new. And again, I'm trying to talk a little bit about the context and explain why I think they're relevant for this year as well as in the future. So the next one is this one. It's not slang. It's something that I think has been used a lot more in the last 5 years. It's talking about the practice of answering a criticism or difficult question by making a similar criticism or asking a different but related question, typically starting with the words, what about? Okay, that's your big hint down there at the bottom. This person, it's a way of deflecting and saying, like, somebody is criticizing something you said or something you did, and you're saying, well, this is not bad because of this over here. And you would start out with saying, well, what about this? Or what about when this happened? Or what about when this person said this thing? This situation now has a name, and people will talk about it. And you would probably hear this more often, probably in the context of news, covering different people and situations, people trying to deflect, and they would do this. And I'm a little surprised. Oh, there it is. Excellent. You got an answer. Great job. Paul, thank you. Saving the day. So I'm talking about whataboutism. So if you want to talk about this situation, somebody is doing this, you would refer to it as whataboutism. There we are. Excellent. Rafaela, perfect. So before I start with this one, I'm going to skip over there, because this is the last example of whataboutism that I could think about. And the headline of this article was FIFA President Defends Qatar World Cup by Criticizing Europe. So I don't know if any of you watched the World Cup or if you saw this interview. It was pretty bad. But this was a textbook example of whataboutism, because there were legitimate criticisms about having the World Cup in Qatar or Qatar. I know people use different pronunciations. Criticizing, the reasons for having it there, that it was in winter, the stadiums and the labor that they used, the laws, the practices. And instead of him addressing those, he started talking about, well, Europe, and, Europe has a bad history when it comes to the treatment of other people and the wars. And he wasn't answering the question at all, but just saying, well, what about this? Well, what about this? Or like the US has a terrible history. And it's like, yeah, well, that's true, but that does not mean that you can't criticize other things that are happening right now. So again, this is a way of deflecting. And if somebody's doing this, you could use this word to talk about that situation. Like, oh, this is a form of whataboutism. Now, going back to this list right here, this is an article that I had found, and it was talking about 8 examples of whataboutism. When people typically use this, talking about these different situations. So if you're talking about like finance, there might be a lot of whataboutism. Human rights, which is related to the FIFA example that I just gave you, and it was a textbook whataboutism. Or talking about performance or politics, family, disaster, risk, status quo. There are a variety of situations in which somebody may do this. And I think, again, it's just getting labeled nowadays. People trying to say, well, what about this? What about this? And you say, well, that's just, whataboutism. So again, good word, I think, to know for the future. And again, not saying that you necessarily have to go out and like, oh, you need to use this word right away, but really just listen for it, because building vocabulary is not just about you using the words in conversation, but also your comprehension as well. It really goes hand in hand. The next one is this right here. Someone who is extremely rich and powerful, especially a person from Russia who became rich after the end of the former Soviet Union. And you can see I put the Russian flag behind there. And this, after Russia invaded Ukraine, this is a word that I think you started reading about or hearing about a lot more in the news, and I think we're going to continue hearing about this in 2023. So this is a word to describe a person. So this is a noun. Very rich and powerful, especially from Russia, and we're talking about somebody who is an what? All right, seeing some answers. So again, I think, many of you, you've heard this word, you've probably read about it or heard it if you're watching the news, and we're talking about an oligarch. So I've given you some examples, again, just so you can see how the word is used in context. Often you're going to hear it used as a collocation, a Russian oligarch, even though an oligarch, it doesn't have to be someone from Russia, but typically you're often going to hear it in that way. So I'll read these headlines real quickly. Russian oligarch seizes 400,000 acres of Ukrainian farmland, reported by the Wall Street Journal. Or next one, Russian oligarch's yacht seized in Sardinia has disappeared from port. Russian diplomat, Indian politician spar over oligarch's death. And the final one, Canada moves to seize 26 million from Russian oligarch Roman Abramovich. So again, this is a word that I think you will continue to hear this year, which is why I have included it in this lesson. The next one, this one's a little more difficult, I think, at least in my opinion, because I also would say it's a bit more slang. And it's referring to content deemed humiliating on account of a poster's looks. And when I say poster, like the content creator, the person who's posting content, the poster's looks, behavior, or talent, and the lack of apparent self-awareness about those things. So this is a word, it's an adjective. that you could use to describe it. You watch this video and you think it's rather, humiliating, it's embarrassing, it's difficult to watch, and you could use this word to describe it. Again, I would say it's a little more, maybe I think it's a little more like slang. I don't typically use it that much, but I see somebody answered it down in the comments. Excellent. Great job. Satya, Rafaela. Yeah, we're talking about describing something that is cringe. So the one thing I want to say, which is why I say I think people will use it as slang, because you could also say the adjective cringy. Often with cringe, you would use it as a verb, to cringe. And the adjective would be, oh, that's so cringy. But nowadays, people are using just cringe as the adjective, and they're going to use it as a predicate adjective following the verb to be. So I gave you this example. You watch something online, it just doesn't make you feel, it's a little awkward and embarrassing to watch, and you could say, oh, that video is just so cringe. And you're not using cringy, but you're going to use cringe as an adjective. And I added it down there that I think maybe more likely you might hear younger people using this and talking about it and saying something is cringe or it's so cringe. Then I have some more. Hopefully, again, you guys got some of that. This is another, I think this is a good word. Used to refer or describe the person who has performed better than anyone else, especially in a sport. It does not have to be in a sport, but just somebody who is the absolute best at this activity or this thing or this sport. What would you call this person? And to give you a little bit of a hint, it's an acronym. And you would say, this person is the what? And I feel like, I think many of you will get this because this is a word that I think you definitely hear. And I think you keep hearing more and more about it, talking about some of these athletes. So great job, Lali, Satya, Zanat, Angela, Manuel, Mina, Alex, Alexander. We're talking about GOAT. And you would say someone is the GOAT. You're going to use it with the article the because, again, in this case, you're talking about one person. You're being specific. And to give you some examples of people, I said it's especially used when in sports in referring to the GOAT. We have Pele there, famous footballer, or as they would say in the United States, soccer. And again, I was debating whether to put Messi in there or Pele. I decided to put Pele, recently passed away, rest in peace. Three-time World Cup champion, amazing career. The next one, the middle picture, Michael Jordan, six-time NBA champion. They would consider him the GOAT when it comes to basketball. And then in the final picture, and because I'm from the United States, I included somebody who's part of American football. You have Tom Brady, famous quarterback there, who he continues to play the game. The guy's like 90 years old, and he just keeps playing. And you'd say, yeah, he's the GOAT. So I said this is an acronym. Technically, you would say it's initialism, but GOAT just stands for greatest of all time. And you'd say someone is the GOAT. All right, excellent. I like the emoji too, the GOAT. So let's move on to the next one. I think I have a couple more. This is a word that means aware, especially of social problems such as racism and inequality. It's a word that I think has been a lot more commonly used in the last few years. I think people will continue to use it this year. You'll probably hear it a lot if you watch news. And I would say you hear this word related to politics, but really referring to like social, especially like a lot of these wedge issues. And you would say somebody is what? All right. So Again, I feel like when people really start throwing out the words quickly, it makes me think, okay, yes, it's like I said, it's pretty common. You've heard about it before. Excellent, Dr. Miro, Yagmor, Angela, Muna, Rafaela. So I put those eyes back there again, talking about becoming socially aware. The word that I'm referring to is woke. Now, one thing I will say about this word is if I just talk about, oh, somebody becoming socially aware, and you would say, oh, that's a good thing if somebody is woke. But just be careful with this word if you're not necessarily if you're using it. I don't know if you'll find yourself in a position to use it, but if you're reading about it or listening to someone else use this, sometimes they'll use it in a negative way. And they're basically trying to say that in that context, like something's gone too far. So it's a word that you may hear people use in either a positive, in a positive way or a negative way. So just keep that in mind. I put these article headlines in there so you could see how it's used in context, talking about the U.S. government's woke training. So in this case, I think they're using it in a negative way, saying that, oh, the government's going too woke, especially coming from the Wall Street Journal. The next one, also same way, New York Post, more conservative newspaper, and they're talking about the woke university implosion and what comes next. And that's another criticism that people will talk about, like, oh, universities are becoming too woke. The Chattanooga Times Free Press opinion, yes, I'm woke and proud of it. The next one, James Cameron learns a hard lesson. You're never woke enough. I don't know if that's referring to Avatar 2. I have not seen the movie, so I don't know. And then the final one, why do anti-woke free thinkers have the same opinions? So this is a word that I think it's really emotionally charged because people are either using it in a positive way, talking about we need to become more woke, or others trying to really, I guess, say that things have gone too far, and they're really talking about it in a negative way. So again, it's a word that you're going to hear a lot about, and just, you'd have to just put that in context. Is somebody talking about it in a positive way or a negative way? Just keep that in mind. But again, good word for 2023. Then we have this word, which I think this one's going to be tough to guess, even though I think you probably have heard this word before. But the meaning is something that's very impressive, spectacular, awesome. There are many different synonyms when it comes to these words right here. But this is a word that I think has also become a little bit more slang. And because, especially in the United States, and I would also say you're probably more likely to find younger people using this word. I feel like if I use it, maybe it'll sound a little awkward. I don't know. I'll try to use it in just a moment, and you can tell me if it sounds natural or it's like, Wes, I think you're too old for this word. So I told you it'd be tough to guess because there are so many synonyms when talking about something impressive or spectacular or awesome. So I will go ahead and tell you the word that I'm talking about, and that is epic. Saying something is epic. Now, I'll point out that this is an adjective. I think often before, people would use this adjective before the noun and talk about, well, an epic tale. But using it more nowadays, like as a little bit of slang, people might use it as a predicate adjective following the verb to be, like, wow, the waves were epic, or his skills are epic, or the trip was epic. And you're basically saying that, yeah, it was amazing. It was spectacular. And I mentioned down here that a lot of younger people may likely use this word. I hope that you find these lessons to be epic. And if you do, please hit that like button. That's how you can let me know if you think my lessons are epic. All right. So again, just a fun word that I wanted to include. And, here's a good one that I think You you would definitely hear this in the United States. It's, it has a negative connotation. You can see right there an insulting way of referring to someone who is considered by some people to be too easily upset and offended. So I'll give you a hint that I think often people who are talking about things related to politics might use this word to insult a group of people. And they are going to call them what? And another hint, I guess you could say, I totally forgot that I put it in there. Just look at the picture. All right. What is that a picture of? And that's your answer right there. So excellent. Dr. Miro, Manuel, thank you, Eleanor. The lesson is epic. I'm glad to hear that. So we're talking about, well, Karen's a good one. That would typically, again, only be talking about a woman, if you're saying somebody's a Karen. In this case, we're talking about a snowflake. So, and I said that people might use this more politically, and you hear words like a collocation. People say, oh, these liberal snowflakes, like referring to the group of people that they get too easily upset or offended. Or like in this example right here, this news broadcast is talking about younger people that maybe they get too easily upset. And they have that screen up there. It says Generation Snowflake. And it says the word snowflake has become the norm to describe Generation Z. But what does it mean to you? So again, this could also be an example of like this news channel is just gaslighting and just trying to provoke that emotional response by calling these younger generations this younger generation, Generation Z, just a bunch of snowflakes. So again, this is a word that you may not necessarily need to go out and use, and that you're going to need to use in your conversations with people. But again, it's relevant to this year because if you're watching the news or reading the news or listening to others, you may hear people use this word, again, in a derogatory way, to say that somebody just gets too easily upset. They're a snowflake. So the next one, where is it? Right here. Okay. This is slang. A person who is silly or not intelligent. This is not a word that I use. I feel like, I don't know, maybe I feel like I'm too old to use this word. I told you I think it's more slang. And I couldn't find an example. I put Homer Simpson in there, and I think it will make sense when I tell you the word. But of course, you can see that this meaning right here, a person who's silly, not intelligent, I think that applies to Homer Simpson. Excuse me. So I like some of the answers that you guys are putting in there. Dumb, nerd, dork, moron. Okay, those are great words. It's not the one that I'm thinking of because once again, those I think words are more well-known. People have been using them. Wow. Okay, Rafaela, you're very close. All right. Simpleton. Except we're going to take simpleton and we're going to reduce it to just simp. So if you say somebody is a simp, it's slang for, again, somebody who's just not intelligent. And I put right down there, like simp is short for simpleton. So I don't think even simpleton is not a word that I feel like I've used in a long time. It's an insulting word. But I feel like younger generations, and I forgot to put that down below. I meant to add that younger generations may more often use this word in talking about somebody in a negative way and say, oh, they're such a simp, or this person's a simp. And they're just saying that they're not intelligent, a bit silly. Once again, I think Homer Simpson is a great example. And you could say he's a simp. But you don't want to, again, it's not a good word, to say that to someone. Of course, you guys know that. But Here, again, just to give you a little bit of review, these are the words that we just talked about in this lesson, and I do think that they are relevant for 2023. I hope some of these are new for you, helping you build your vocabulary, improve your listening and reading comprehension, and perhaps find yourself in a position that you could even talk about these in conversation. If there's somebody who's saying all this crazy things online, you're like, oh yeah, this person should be deplatformed, or talking about that happening to someone else. Or again, people using that situation. Well, what about this? Well, what about this? Oh yeah, that's whataboutism. And of course, you're probably, if you're interested in technology, you probably see Mark Zuckerberg give interviews talking about the Metaverse and how it's coming. But other ones, again, you could definitely use GOAT is a good one that I think is pretty universal, talking about somebody who's the best at something. So let me know in the chat if you learn some new words. I'm curious to know which of these words were new for you. But I thought this would be a good way to start out the new year, building your vocabulary, talking about some advanced words that I think are relevant to this upcoming year. Words that I think you will hear about watching videos, listening to podcasts, or even reading something online. You may come across them. So thank you for joining me. Great seeing you, Takayo, Lolly, good to see you again, Rafaela, Mina, Violet. Sorry, I need to drink some water. Just give some few shout outs at the end. Christina, Angela, I hope that you have a wonderful day. Vicky, Gustav, Svetlana, Crystal, Jorge, Mina. Okay, I should wrap things up. Yeah, because I need to drink some water. I hope you have a wonderful day. I wish you all the best in 2023. A lot of cool stuff coming out this year. A lot of fun lessons that I'm really excited to share with you guys. And I will see you very soon. Oh, Frank, too.